All right, hello, I'm Pat Horvath, and I'm the chair of the Hall of Fame. I want to welcome you to the 22nd Jefferson Athletics Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Jefferson Athletics Hall of Fame represents the history of Ram athletics, from textile to Philadelphia University, that's right, and then Thomas Jefferson University. Tonight, we have 5 inductees that we're going to induct that left their mark on their individual sport and also as the department as a whole. Before I get to introducing them, I want to thank Ray Reese in Advancement for her help with this event, Rose Kelly, obviously the Associate Athletic Director, for her help, and then Rob Cunningham, the man behind the camera for tonight as well. Yep. And now we'll introduce the inductees for the night. The first one, Mary Wilson, representing women's rowing. Alisha Wax Ferguson, representing women's basketball. Malcolm Ingram, men's basketball. Julie Soriero, women's basketball, athletic administration. And then Robert Bob Smith, baseball. All right. And then, now I have another job I have to do real quick. Hold on. All right. Please welcome to the podium Dr. Mark Tikachinsky, President of Thomas Jefferson University, and the Anthony F. and Gertrude M. Del Palma, Dean of Sidney Kimmel Medical College. Now you can come up. There you go. Thanks, sir.
Well, I don't know. I have this way of bringing good luck to places, I think. When I got to Washington, D.C. a while back, turns out is when the Redskins got into the, and won the Super Bowl. And I seem to have a string of cities when I go to. Unfortunately, I'm not the athlete myself, but at least I bring good luck to the places. And I'd say we're doing pretty well this season across, pretty much all of our sports here at Jefferson. So it's really pretty exciting. Good evening, everyone. It's really nice to be here to celebrate some of the most talented student athletes and dedicated support staff our institution has known. Whether running the length of the court, rounding the bases, skimming across water, or supporting athletics through administrative work, tonight's inductees have hit it out of the park. They are true champions in every sense of the word. For the past 4 decades, the Athletics Hall of Fame has honored individuals who've made outstanding contributions to the university's sports programs. When NBA Hall of Fame coach Phil Jackson said that, quote, "The strength of a team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team," he described Jefferson to a T. Thomas Jefferson University's success has always come from the quality of our students, faculty, and staff. Our strength and our achievements are reflected in their accomplishments on the athletic field, in the classroom, and in the world that they help to improve. Tonight's inductees are talented athletes and leaders, as well as gifted students and dynamic members of society. They are part of a college that is ranked 127th in the U.S. News and World Report's National Universities category and is number 61 on the list's Best Value Colleges. They are the student body that has brought impressive national rankings in a number of other areas, including colleges for veterans, occupational therapy, nursing, and fashion. And it should be noted that Jefferson has earned the 8th straight NCAA President's Award for Academic Excellence, given to universities with student athletes who graduate at a rate of 90% or higher. This year, Jefferson's rate was an impressive 97%. Our students and coaches have raised the bar for molding well-rounded students and champion athletes. Of course, we're known for our men's basketball program, particularly for our own coach, Herb McGee, who led us to an NCAA Division II basketball championship in 1970. But there's so much more to our athletics here at Jefferson. including our championship women's basketball program under the direction of Coach Tom Shirley, our men's and women's tennis teams, both Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference champions, and our women's soccer team, just to name a few. Baseball, cross country, golf, track and field, lacrosse, rowing, softball, volleyball. No matter the sport, our athletes, coaches, and administrative staff promote excellence both on and off the fields of competition. They are the embodiment of skill, determination, sportsmanship, and teamwork. Congratulations to tonight's inductees. You are joining an elite group of alumni, many of whom are here tonight. It's wonderful to see that so many of our past Hall of Famers have been able to join us this evening. You're all woven deeply into the tapestry of Jefferson athletics. So please stand and be recognized. I'd like to offer a special thanks to tonight's host, Coach Pat Horvath, who is now in his 13th season as the head coach of the Rams baseball team, and a big shout out to Tom Shirley, the Assistant Vice President for Athletics. This is Tom's 33rd season. Am I giving anything away, Tom? 33rd season as the head coach of the Rams women's basketball team. He's guided the team to 11 NCAA tournament appearances, 4 Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference championships, and 2 Eastern Collegiate Atlantic Conference crowns. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce a man who really needs no introduction, a legend on the court and on the sidelines, a man who has taken his rightful place in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame and in the hearts of our Jefferson family. Please welcome Coach Herb McGee.
Thank you, Mark. It's not too often that the president introduces the coach. Usually it's the opposite way around. But I appreciate that, and you read that just the way I wrote it. So that was well done. Now we're
only the last paragraph.
Yes, we're here to honor again. I've been the MC for a number of years, and we've had this Hall of Fame. It started years ago when I was coaching my first few years, and we couldn't decide where to hold it. So we did it at the halftime of a basketball game. As you can imagine, I don't blame you for chuckling because it didn't work too well, because we got kids running all over the court. There's all kinds of things going on. So we decided we'd move it to when we did the varsity club banquet in the cafeteria. And it worked fine. It worked fine. And then finally, when the university took over this property, and this was here, it was obvious that we were going to do it here. And it's been a huge success ever since. So Mark mentioned some of the times of the changes of the name of the school. When I came here in 1959, I show up and the name of the school is the Philadelphia Textile Institute. And the 2 of the guys I played with at West Catholic High School thought I was being committed into an institute. Then they changed the name Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, and every place we went, when you were introduced, you had to put up with the jokes. At Textile, you not only have to earn your sweater, but you have to make it. On offense, we ran the Reeve. We were said to be a close-knit team. And this is the stuff we had to put up with until the change was made to Philadelphia University, and finally now to Thomas Jefferson University. So it's really been an honor of mine to be here, to do this every year, and I think the best thing to do, we have a tremendous class going in, would be for us to get started. Now, as Dr. Chekachinski mentioned, or actually Coach Horvath mentioned, anybody can nominate anybody for the Hall of Fame. And the stipulations are simple. You have to be a graduate of the university and been out of school for at least 5 years. This year we have a tremendous class going in, and diversified class. We got We got administrators, we have baseball, basketball, rowing, we have everything. Women's basketball, we have everything. So to get us started, it's going to be my job to introduce our former coach of rowing, Chris O'Brien, who's now the head coach at down the shore at Stockton State, and fortunately has the good luck to be playing or working for a guy named Tony Burrish, who started his career here as our sports information director. So without any further ado, to introduce our first athlete is Chris O'Brien. Chris?
Well, thank you very much, Coach. One thing that I think you forgot to mention is, so I chaired the Hall of Fame for the past 12 years before Pat. So for anybody who was here earlier, let me know who did better. So it's not often that you get a what I would call a walk-on athlete that comes into your program and instantly revamps your program. It's also not often, and you'll testify to this, that a head coach will go up there and say that I didn't have anything to do with that walk-on athlete. But I didn't. So I met Mary when she came into our rowing interest meeting, the fall of her freshman year. So she came in, she fills out all the paperwork, all the forms, and then we get the list. And if you don't know rowing, half of our roster is usually walk-on athletes. So all these athletes are athletes that they didn't row in high school. They didn't row at any other time, but for whatever reason, they're going to come to college, and they don't want to do whatever they did then, so they want to row. So we get all these names, and we know that they're not all going to be with us forever because rowing is harder. We run a lot, we row a lot, we lift a lot, and it's not as cool as just hanging on a court, right? But
this is why it doesn't work here anymore.
So I digress. So we met Mary, and so
We're going to vote for Horvath.
Right before I met Mary, I have to tell you one thing. So this is early on, maybe 08, and we had walk-ons, and it was an early practice in the fall, and I think we were indoors, and we were running. We were doing ab circuits, whole bunch of stuff, and just repeating that over and over and over. And I remember a young lady as she's running by, she's like, "Jesus, this is like the Army." I don't think she lasted very long. But let's fast forward to when we saw Mary. It's first day, and we're like, "Who are you? Why don't you tell us about yourself? Why did you join our program?" When it's Mary's turn, she says who she is, where she's from, and she's like, "I just wanted something to do because I was just in the Air Force for 4 years." So the first thing I thought was "Oh man, maybe we'll find out if these workouts are like the Army or the Air Force." And then the second thing I thought was, we're going to have a winner. And we're going to have a girl who's got leadership. We're going to have a young woman who knows accountability, ownership, all those things that we teach every single day. And I just had to get out of your way, right? You already knew what you're doing, and I just had to get out of your way. So the very first time that we did an erg workout, for those that don't know, an erg is an indoor rower. We did an erg workout, and I talked to Mary, and I think she said, "Coach, what should I pull?" I don't know. So I looked up at the record books. All right, the best time was X, so I took about 1 minute off of that. I said, "I think if you held that, you'd be okay." Well, she got 5 minutes less than that. And so I was like, wow, this girl's good. And so everything she ever did in her whole 4 years here over-exceeded any expectations I could ever have of Mary. She was an All-American her sophomore year. She was an All-American her junior year. She was an All-American her senior year with mono. And I'll end it with this. It's her senior year, and she is off of mono, and she's chomping at the bit to just get in a boat and race. And we're racing against our regional rivals. And we're in the huddle. We're right before the race goes off. It's about an hour before. We do like my pep talk and stuff. And then I always end it with, "What I miss? What are you thinking? Are we ready? What are we doing?" And all the time, everyone just doesn't say anything. So all of a sudden, like Mary's like, "Hey, coach, we're winning." And then she actually like looks at her whole boat and is like, "And if anybody has any doubt that we're winning, I got you on my back. We're winning. We're not losing." We won that race by 5 seconds. It was like the very first time in our program history that we ever were the top team in the East region after that race. And there's hundreds of examples that I can use, but I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be prouder. And I'm humbled that you asked me to introduce you into the Hall of Fame. So without any further ado, the very first thrower to ever go into our Athletics Hall of Fame, Mary Wilson.
Thank you all for, I didn't know I was supposed to make a speech tonight, so I'm just going to lead with that. I'd like to thank, first of all, my mother for raising me to be a strong woman. Coach O'Brien, who definitely had more to do with my success than he will admit. He definitely pushed me every day. My teammates, who are far and wide across the country, they definitely pushed me to be the best I could be. My husband was not with me during that time, but I thank him now for dealing with me. And of course, my extended family. And thank you all for nominating me and inducting me into the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mary. Well deserved. Our next inductee is a young man that played for me. And when I talked to him about this, I said, "Who would you like to have introduce you?" And he said, "My mother." And that's terrific. And I was just talking to Gail outside. And Gail is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania Law School, where she met Malcolm's father, Gerald. And they produced this young man. So I'm going to ask Gail Wilson to come up and introduce her son. Gail?
First, a sad note I need to mention. Malcolm's father, Gerald Ingram, passed from this life earlier this year on January 2nd. He was a great support and influence on Malcolm and attended all of his college basketball home games as well as his high school games. And not as many swim meets, we'll get to that. But that was because Malcolm has an older brother who also played basketball in high school and in college, and so we had to split a lot of times. I was doing the swimming and trying to see as many of Jordan's games as I could, but his dad was taking Jordan to all his games. So let me say after that, Malcolm was highly motivated and a serious athlete from an early age. He began competitive swimming at 8 years old, his choice. We were all, "Swimming? We just want to make sure you don't drown in a pool." But he, after being reluctant at first to even learn how to swim, once he learned, he was just ready to move on to competitive swimming. And at the pool that he learned to swim, where he learned to swim, they had a United States swimming, USS is the governing body for competitive swimming in the United States. And there was a USS team at this pool. So at 8 years old, he decides he wants to join. And they actually took in 8-year-olds. They call them minis. So he starts swimming, and competitively at 8 years old, but he also played basketball too, because when he first started swimming, he was only going twice a week to practice. And he was able to play basketball. And he was good at basketball from an early age too. But the swimming and the basketball seasons overlap, so eventually he let go of the basketball and decided he just wanted to swim. By age 10, he was a very good swimmer. He swam his first mile in competition swimming at 10 years old. He was also a very fast breaststroker. And for any of you who know anything about swimming or have had, a sibling, a child who swims, you go to meets and you know that there are like pages and pages and pages of heats for freestyle, backstroke, and not breaststroke, but butterfly. There are like 3 heats, a lot of times for breaststroke. Breaststroke takes an extraordinary amount of coordination, and there are not a lot of people who are good at it. But Malcolm was good at it from a very early age. And so he kept swimming, and as a high school freshman, he was instrumental in assisting his team win its first district championship in many years. And he also was named as a freshman to the all-district team. But then he decided to switch to basketball and began preparing to try out for his high school's basketball team during his sophomore year. And I thought he might make the JV. And I was talking to his older brother, who at that time was an all-Catholic basketball star, and he told me, nah, he's going to make the varsity. He said, I know the team he's trying out for because we've played them, and I know Malcolm's game. He'll make the varsity. And he was right. He did make the varsity. But the thing that I really love about Malcolm is that Malcolm still understood that he was behind on basketball because he'd been doing all this swimming, and he still had to really develop his skills. And he decided really in high school that he wanted to play basketball in college. So he worked really hard all year round, the way probably most college basketball players have been doing that. But he really worked hard because he knew he had a lot of skills that he had to gain. And he ended up in high school getting all district honors and scored over 1,000 points, which a lot of college basketball players have done. He also pulled out more than 1,000 rebounds because he was really tough under the basket. And obviously he worked hard in college also when he got to Philly U. He also earned academic honors at Philly U because actually when he started even swimming, he was sort of a more lackadaisical student back then. But as he began to want to swim more and get better, he went from swimming to going to practice twice a week, to 3 times a week, to 5 days a week, to eventually to another club where he was swimming all year round, and they were, by the time he was, I don't even think he was quite high school, he was still in junior high, he was going to double practices, 5 a.m. in the morning. And again, I was the one that had to do this. So we're up, crack of dawn. I got to drive him to this practice. But I also drove another one of his teammates that lived near us. And, we did this tandem with that. I drove them there. And then the other swimmers' parents picked them up and then distributed them to school. But this was at least twice a week. And Malcolm was about being there on time. He's like, come on, Mom, we can't be late. And late meant he really wanted to get there because he had to change. So you need to get there really by 4:30, 4:45, so that, you can take off all this stuff and then put on these little trunks, these little bitty suits. And So actually, really, when he kind of said, okay, I'm ready to stop swimming now and I want to go to basketball, I was like, hey, that'll work. No more, doubles. But this is how crazy competitive swimming is and just how dedicated he was. The same team was doing doubles in the summer, and they used to be out at Memorial Hall, the pool there, because in the summer you swim in Olympic-sized pools and you do meters. In the winter you're doing yards. So they were doing 5 a.m. practices out there too. And I remember one Friday, his older brother and I were saying like, hey, let's go see this movie, whatever it was. And I said, well, Malcolm, are you coming? He's like, no, I'm not going. I'm really tired. We did a double today. I got to get back out and do a double tomorrow. And I was like, I can't believe this. He was 13 years old. I said, he can't even go to a movie on Friday and, on a Friday night. But that's how dedicated he was. And he brought that same dedication to basketball. So obviously here he also was academically a very strong student. And with all that he was doing, because all of you who know what it's like for even high school athletes, never mind college, it's a grind. It can really be a grind, keeping up with your work and your schoolwork and the practices and the games. And I couldn't believe it when he said, hey, I'm going to do this application for Fulbright. I'm like, really? Hey, I had to work hard. I'm a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania Law School. I know what hard work is, but he's on another level. But he did it, and he became the first Fulbright scholar for this university. And all of us in the family simply found him amazing. I must say that he comes from a family of athletes, not on my side. They're all on his father's side. His father, his uncles all played varsity in high school. He had an uncle who played at Syracuse University. His daughter played at the University of California. And her brother, Malcolm's other first cousin, played at St. Mary's in California. And he has another cousin who played for Division I at Southern University. So he comes from a high-achieving family, but even so, he really stands out. What I loved most and best about him, and I've always found amazing, is even as hardworking though and as fierce as he is on the court, in the pool, he's just so personable and always ready to laugh. And in other words, he's balanced. I did see the law school thing coming. I always thought, he'll find that way too tedious. It's just, he's like always wanting to go fast. And law is not fast. It's just really a grind and tedious. But he decided he wanted to do it, and here he is. And actually, I look at him and I think he's way better suited to it than even I was. So, congratulations, beloved son. You're just the best.
Thank you, Mom. I love you. Congratulations to all the honorees today. Thank you to Thomas Jefferson University for inducting us into the Hall of Fame, for giving us a great 4 years. I chose my mom tonight to give me an introduction because of some of the life lessons she taught me. One of the life lessons that she kind of glazed over was hard work. So I've always been a hard worker. I can accept failure, but I can't accept not putting the work in, right? So I always got to put the work in whatever I do. But it started when I was swimming. So around the time I was going to swim practice twice a week and also playing basketball twice a week, I was having success in both sports. I enjoyed swimming a lot. I really enjoyed the adrenaline of racing someone to the finish line, right? And I'm having a hell of a season as a 10-year-old. I'm going to the Junior Olympics. I'm placing first and second without really putting a lot of hard work in. So summertime comes around. I'm still doing a thing where I'm kind of excuse my language, half-assing it, right? And we get to the Junior Olympics. and I get my butt kicked, right? And I'm pouting on the way home, and I'm just in the car, and I'm distraught, right? And at the time I was getting taller, my mom had a really good habit of when she wanted to discipline me, doing it in the car, so we're the same height at the time, right? So I'm crying about this race, and she looks at me and says, "What are you upset about? You didn't work hard. You didn't put the work in. Those guys who beat you have been working all year. They've worked for 2 years. You didn't do anything. You just kind of showed up. If you want to win, you got to put the work in. You get into it, what you get out what you put in." And from then I was always hooked, right? And over the years, they've challenged me academically as well as athletically. Look, if you put the work in, you're going to see success. And I found that exhilarating. So I continually, over the years, no matter what level I was playing at or who I was playing against, always had to put the work in, right? And at the time, there were which I wouldn't call failures, but setbacks and roadblocks. But if you put the work in, you always overcome those plateaus and those roadblocks. I think back to my time here, my sophomore year, and Coach, you'll remember this, we had a really talented team, but a young team, right? And we had put the work in the year before, but we started out 0-7, right? And anyone who knows Coach McGee, that's not going to happen. Right? That's not going to fly under any circumstances, no matter how good or how bad you are, right? But we're putting the work in. I remember talking to my parents about it because there was frustration about losing. We just don't take losing lightly, right? And it was tense at practice. But I remember talking to my mother and my father, and they said, "Look, if you're putting the work in, this will work out. Just keep putting the work in, keep grinding it out, and things will turn around." And lo and behold, they did. We ended up winning 23 games straight, the conference championship, and it was spectacular, right? All along the way, I mean, my teammates and I just fought through and pushed through. But again, it was an example of putting the work in and trusting in the process and that things will work out, right? You're not going to win every game, but if you put the work in, you always have a chance to overcome success and get a great outcome, right? And then the last thing I'll say, I want to thank you, Coach, for giving me a chance. You know, you came to watch me play at the Soulbury School out in New Hope after I run about 6 miles in a cross-country race, and I stunk the gym up. But Coach was impressed that I would run a cross-country race, then come play pickup basketball in front of him after doing that, and gave me a shot. And all along my career here at Philadelphia University, you gave me a lot of opportunities. You talked with me, you encouraged me to do good academically as well as athletically. You were actually the first person to tell me that I was going to win the Fulbright. I finished the application, it was a long fall, and he asked that I win. I said, "Well, I don't find out until March." And you told me, "Don't worry about it, I know you've won," right? So I appreciate that. Kind of helped put me at ease. And lo and behold, I did win in the end. I also want to thank my teammates. Hard for them to get here tonight, but I really appreciate them. They really pushed me to the next level and supported me throughout the way. I wouldn't be here without them. As I look back now on the 4 years, which are a wonderful 4 years, you only always remember what you and your teammates did. I really can't remember individual games. I remember games that the team won as a whole, really, right? And that's kind of what Coach McGee instilled into us from day one. So again, thank you all for joining us. My mom, thank you, I love you. Congratulations to the honorees. That's my time.
When I was told that Malcolm had been elected for induction into our Hall of Fame, I took some time. I have time right now to do anything I want. And I took some time to go through some of the things. And what he said was, his coach, Coach Cleve, called me and said, "Coach McGee, you got to see this kid Malcolm Ingram play." I said, "How am I going to do that?" He said, "Well, come on up. We're going to get a scrimmage tomorrow afternoon," or whatever it was. So I went up. I said, "Well, where's Malcolm?" He said, "Well, he's in a 6-mile race right now." And I said, "Wait a minute, he's a 6-mile race and then he's going to play basketball?" He said, "Don't worry about it." So Malcolm belittled how he played that day. He played pretty good. We're not about to recruit a kid who stinks. And he was far from that. He's a terrific basketball player. And I looked up some of his stats. And the statistic that stands out most of all, in his 4 years, the team won 94 games in 4 years. So 20 wins a year is a good year. We were 14 over that. And Malcolm, along with his teammates, or the big part. Malcolm was a leader. He's one of those guys, I'll tell you what he did. Not too many guys on your basketball team, and those of you that are basketball fans, you know what I'm talking about. When you're about to shoot a foul shot, many times what happens is the guy who's on your team assumes you're going to make it. Malcolm never did that. And he would break loose a lot of balls that missed and get the ball. In a couple games, we won one game because one of our kids missed a foul. Malcolm got the rebound and put it back for the game-winning basket. So that really is the definition of a winner. As a player, 3-time first-team all-conference, 3 times. 1,768 points in his career. A little bit less than his coach, but that's okay. And what's equally as impressive, CAC first team all-academic every year. And of course, as he mentioned, the Fulbright Scholar. There have been 2 people from the university, not athletes, 2 people, but they both are athletes. One was a female lacrosse player, and Malcolm, who have received Fulbright Scholars, if I'm not mistaken. So that's correct, okay? I was close when I was a senior here. Excuse me? One thing I'd like to add, when Malcolm got here, he wasn't real bright. So I had to help him with most of his classes at the time. So, but they're sitting there right now, as well as the other folks who are going in tonight, is the definition of a Hall of Famer, not only as a basketball player, but as a man. So, Malcolm, thank you for everything that you did for us. Now, our next inductee is a young woman that I watched play during her career here at the university. And we as basketball coaches have an expression, and it goes like this: that kid can play. Plain and simple, that kid can play. And this young woman could play. She was a terrific player. I would always see her father. As a matter of fact, I had played golf a few times with her father, and I meant to mention him outside that he still owes me $5 for the one time we played, and I beat him, but he refused to pay. So we'll talk about Pat after that. But Pat was a big fan. I don't think he ever missed a game, if I'm not mistaken. Came to all the games, and the teams she played on were terrific teams. So to introduce our next inductee is our women's basketball coach, Tom Shirley.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Coach McGee. Congratulations to all of our inductees. Terrific night and well-deserved class. Special mention to Julie Soriero. Julie was the person that built the foundation of women's basketball at Textile. Everything that's been accomplished since that became because of your base, so we thank you. And I was fortunate to be able to take your place. I'm still trying to catch the Final Four, but that's not working out too good. So whenever you're recruiting, people always say, what do you need? Well, we need rebounding. We need rebounding. We need rebounding. You got to go to Gwinnett Mercy and see Ferguson. Well, what'd she do? She rebounds. So I go to the first game and I watch her play, and at least you probably don't remember this, but she had about 15 or 16 rebounds, but she had 2 points. So I'm thinking, well, the kid can't put a beach ball in the ocean, but she can rebound. So I go back for the second game, and she gets about 10 points, 15, 16 rebounds. So I'm a little more excited. But I go to the third game, and at least I know you don't remember this, but there's a loose ball. She goes for it. The kid from the other team goes for it. And before the ref blows the whistle for the jump ball, she picks the kid off the floor with the ball. I said, I'm in. She can play. She can play. So, of course, it was a very easy recruit, a great young lady from a great family. And we got her here, and we put her in their 5-year program where she sat out for the first year and then went on to get her MBA, which is always terrific. And it began. I mean, and just to talk about now some of the statistics and things that she accomplished, and appreciate that next year, Julie, you may not even know this, next year is the 50th anniversary of women's basketball at Textile. So think about her status within 50 years. She had 1,202 points, which is 22nd all time. Should have been higher, but you missed a ton of layups. She had 1,114 rebounds, which is 3rd all time. She had 409 rebounds in her senior year, which is first all-time and second in the country in her senior year. A 9.4 rebound average, which is really, really terrific. 48.9% field goal percentage, which is fourth all-time. It's because she shot all layups, but they went in, so that we were happy about that. In 4 seasons, we didn't get to your stage, Malcolm, but she got 83 wins in 4 years, and all 4 years were 21 seasons for us, which was terrific. 6 women in the history of the program have 1,000 points and 1,000 rebounds. Alisha, terrific. In senior year, she was first team all-conference and second team in the country in rebounding. And I think most importantly, she made some great friends. It was a really good class. 3 of her friends here, Nikki and Kate and Kristen, are here tonight to recognize her. And, I think like Malcolm, just a great career, a great young lady, a wonderful woman, a mother, a wife. So I'm very proud of you and honored to induct you into the Hall of Fame.
Coach was already making fun of me because I'm reading my speech off of my phone. But that's how we do it now. We use notes. All right, so thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for the induction into the Hall of Fame. This is a tremendous honor. Coach, you were the conductor for this success. You coached me up. You believed in my ability. You gave me a few chances, maybe a second, a third, a fourth, once in a while, but that's okay. We got there. You wanted me to get it, right? And beyond basketball, you provided me opportunities for growth, and you've taught me some invaluable life lessons, which I think you really wanted to instill in all of your players, which was very honorable. I really still frequent the 6 Ps to get me through some of my days. You guys know what I'm talking about. All of our coaches were tremendous. We were such a lucky group. Coach Paul, we had Melissa, we had JR. But really, Coach Munn, who has a special place in my heart, he's not with us anymore, but I'm going to shout out to Coach Munn. He said I was his recruit, just to be clear. He loved working the big man drills and was always trying to toughen me up by hitting me with sings while I was trying to do layups. But we miss you, big guy. And of course, my teammates, AKA my best friends, thank you for always being there for me, for keeping me on track, and always waking me up for practice and games. That was great. We went through so much together on and off the court, but Nikki, Kristen, and Kate, I will not tell any stories tonight, just to spare you guys. But to sum it up, we had the time of our lives, and the friendships and team spirit were the main reasons for my excitement, enjoyment, and success through college. To my family, my biggest fans, thank you, Mom, for the sacrifices and endless love and support from the sidelines and at home. Dad, thank you for always pushing me to get better and providing me for endless opportunities. Travel, AAU, you got me to college. It all started with donuts Sunday morning after workouts at Bell's Mill, and we still got the up and under going today. Teaching all the nieces and nephews. To my siblings, there's not enough time in the world to address all 10 of you, but you're all my besties, and you've always taken care of me, Rachel, and supported me. Thank you, and I love you. And of course, even though we met after college, thank you to my husband Tyler for being my biggest fan and my hype man from day one. Came to my Orland Summer League games after college, my alumni games, and always cheering me on in life. I look forward to passing on our love of basketball to my 4 boys. Hi guys, you're doing great out there. I haven't heard you once. You've been so good. I will always look back on my time here with pride and fond memories. Thank you, Philly U, for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And Coach, I think I finally get it. Planning.
Did she say 10 brothers and sisters? right, our next inductee, a woman that during her time here, we became very good friends. Dick Delaney, who was my assistant at the time and the baseball coach, assistant soccer coach, and Julie and I were very good friends. We talked all the time, spent a lot of time together talking about athletics and other things. And one quick story about Julie before I introduce Karen, who's going to introduce Julie. Julie, one of her jobs was at the University of Pennsylvania as the head women's basketball coach. So we're down there one night. I got my team playing University of Pennsylvania men's team in a scrimmage. And the game's going on, and from what I understand, Julie's in the stands and looks out, sees us, and says, same old story, waiting for Herb to get off the court. That's true, right, Julie? Maybe or maybe not. Anyway, it's a good story, Julie. Now, to introduce Julie is a young woman who's in our Hall of Fame. Played basketball here, and if I have this right, she scored well over 1,200 points while she was here. A terrific basketball player, and also helped Julie with the coaching, and that's Karen Parker Pollock. Karen? Karen, how are you, sweetheart?
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I made it. First of all, I want to congratulate all of the inductees for this year's class. You know, I'm looking at this, and Bob Smith, you'll appreciate this, because I came here in '80. I've been through 3 name changes at this university. We affectionately called it Textile. It was Philadelphia College of Textiles and Sciences when I came here. There you go. 3 years after I graduated, they changed it to Philadelphia University. And now we're Jefferson University. And I just want to ask, who is the marketing person for Jefferson University? Because every morning I sit and I have my cup, my latte that I make every morning, and I see a commercial for the university. I cannot ride up and down the highways in Philadelphia or South Jersey without seeing a billboard. I mean, they're doing a great job, really getting the name out there. So I just want to give a hats off to whoever's doing your marketing. It's great. I mean, it's like Temple, University, Penn Hoop, Jefferson. You know, we're right in the mix now.
Pat Baldridge.
Thank you. As a marketer, I can appreciate that. I have the distinct honor this evening to introduce this next Hall of Fame inductee, and Julie Soriero. I'm fortunate enough to say that I know her on several levels. I was going to say twofold, but it's actually threefold, because I would call you friend. You attended my wedding, kept in touch with my career, and we've seen each other at these things on and off over the years, decades. But I got the opportunity to play for you as a junior. I think we met in the fall of '82. Julie didn't recruit me. I was recruited by another coach who I had for the first 2 years here. And we got news that we were getting a new coach on campus. Well, that could be kind of scary, you know, but it turns out it was the best thing that could have happened to all of us and this university. They will attest to it. I also had the opportunity to come back a year after I graduated and be one of the assistants for that great year of women's basketball here at the university in '85, '86, where we went on to win the regional championship and went to the Division II Final Four. And so I've had the opportunity to work with Julie on as a player and stand back and watch as a coach. And so I can tell you some of the intrinsic qualities I noted with her. You can read the brochure about some of her achievements, but I'm going to tell you who the person is that I learned from playing for her and coaching with her. I'll tell you my first impressions when I thought about this. My first impression of Julie when I first met her as our coach was that, number one, it was timely. And at the time, it seemed, at 19 or 20 or however old I was, she was ahead of her time, which she probably was. There was a lot of talk about Title IX. Now, I'm going way back now. I'm dating myself. Title IX and how it might affect the university, the women's sports clubs that we had at that time when we were meeting. And when Julie came, first practice, we had it in Old House Hall. Now that was the big gym. I don't know what they call it now. I'm sorry. I'm getting a game time, Shirley. I swear I am. We had our practice in Old House Hall, and we had every practice thereafter in Old House Hall. That had not been the way it was prior to that. We used to play in Downs Hall. We used to practice in Downs Hall. We had our games in Old House Hall, but we practiced in Downs Hall. But from day one and thereafter, scheduled that with the men's team, we practiced every day in Old House Hall, and all our games were there. Big thing. That was a big deal. The other thing I remember about Julie, first day of practice, she had us all lay on the floor, and Mary Beth will attest to this. And she took us through visualization techniques. Now, we've all heard of these things in this day and age, but then it was mind-blowing. We're laying on the floor, we're looking up at the ceiling, she's talking us through, you got the ball in your hand, you're planning on your left hand, and we were like, what are we doing? What is this? You know what I mean? But it was good stuff, great stuff. I've used it since then in my life and professional career. I guess you pull that from I believe you have a master's in sports psychology from Temple University. So even that shaped who she was as a person and how she approached teaching and working with her players. Julie, if you get to meet her, she exudes confidence. It's in the handshake. It's in the eyesight when you talk with her. And she has this way of almost transferring it through osmosis to her players in the huddle and when she talks with you. I mean, the one year that the team went to the Division II Final Four, I mean, we were 24-6. Yeah, on any given day, any given team can win, but to win 24 games, you got to get the players to buy in to what you're selling. And she had the ability to do that. She was a technician of the game, having played at Penn State University for 4 years. So she was a great strategist. She was well prepared. I mean, I thought that as a player. I know that, having the ability to help her assist. Great preparation. She was a good listener. She was inclusive. These are things you don't always get from your coach. You should get that from a good coach. You know, they might tell you what you're doing wrong and fix it, and it's their way or the highway, but she would listen. She would ask questions like, well, why do you think this isn't working for you? Or she would, Ed and I talked about this, she would ask, how would you do this differently? What do you think? And I think these are all of the qualities that allowed her team, particularly during that famous year, I'm going to keep referring to it, to lock in and buy into what she was giving us. She did team building exercises with the team. I mean, what you gave us was more than just wins and losses. You were preparing us mentally, physically, and these are things that we take with us as players beyond the court. So while we're celebrating what you did here as a coach, I want to attest to it, and I think everyone else here can attest to it, that you've given us things in life. You've made a difference in our lives. You shaped people forever. forever. Julie, you took the women's basketball program to its highest level here at Textile. You put us on the grandest stage. Men's or women's basketball. And every coach thereafter is going to be chasing that. You know, I had this written down, but Tom Shirley said it. He's chasing it. Every coach thereafter is going to chase this. This is something every no matter what level, Division 1, 2, 3, men's or women's, everybody's chasing that. It's not easy to do. Lord knows it's not easy to do, but you did it. You did it. Everyone, please help me welcome to Jefferson University's Class of 2023 Hall of Fame, Julie Soriero.
Thank you, Karen, who was late and I was panicking, but it was a nice introduction. Karen was inducted last year. She was on the first team I coached, as she mentioned, and I am pleased to see that she is here with one of her teammates, Mary Beth Rogers McCallum, herself a member of the Jefferson University Hall of Fame. I want to take a moment to congratulate the other inductees. Very impressive, wonderful credentials. I also want to thank the Hall of Fame Committee and to two of my field hockey players who nominated me, Sue McCrossan and Lorraine LaSource Ford, also in the Hall of Fame, another inductee, and they are here with one of their teammates, Kate Chrissy Buchanan. As we all know, the friendships and bonds we build on teams run deep. Great teammates make great teams. When you get a call that tells you you're getting such an honor bestowed on you as this, it makes you reflective. You think of the people, the stories, the successes, and yes, even the failures. As I reflected on my career at Philadelphia Textile, Philadelphia University, Jefferson University, and my subsequent career in intercollegiate athletics, the one word that keeps coming back to me is grateful. I'm grateful for Harry Pure, who hired a relatively young coach to lead the field hockey team, basketball team, teach physical education, and in my spare time, oversee the women's athletic program. It sounds a bit much. It probably was, and I loved every minute of it. I am grateful to the people who work to support our programs, Bucky, Lorraine, and Billy Harris, President Jim Gallagher, and John Parentozzi. I am also very grateful to Herb McGee, who I learned a great deal from. I have a quick story, and Herb, you had one, but I have the microphone last.
Not really.
No, after I said that, I just thought of that, but anyway, so the story goes on, and for those of you who might know Herb, and who am I kidding? Everybody knows Herb here, right? So I had just started at Textile, and we were having a meeting about practice times. Karen referred to it. It was either 3 to 5 or 5 to 7. So I had been here about 2 to 3 months, and Herb had already been here maybe 40 or 50 years. So I was nervous. Herb was gracious enough to say, and many of you know Herb, you know what, let's keep this simple. We'll take the 3 to 5 slot all year, and you can have the 5 to 7. Now, I said I was nervous, but I didn't say I was stupid. So we worked it out. But in all seriousness, I was lucky to work with such a legend as Herb McGee, a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, as well as the Jefferson University Hall of Fame. Throughout my coaching career, I used many of the drills and concepts he and I talked about, and things that I learned from watching his practice. I am grateful for working with such dedicated staff over the years. In particular, my staff in 1986 when our team went to the NCAA Division II Final Four, Ed Mullen and Karen Parker. Karen was an alum, and she understood the women on the team and the university. As the team knows, and many of them are here today, Karen did not suffer fools. She was one that did not mince words, and all her message were honest, directed, and effective. Ed loved the game of basketball, the X's and O's, and watching games and watching film and going to high school games and you name it with basketball, Ed loved it. He was enthusiastic and had a passion for the sport. He was a very capable and patient teacher. I also include Joe Izzy on my staff, although he was an athletic trainer. And I consider him as part of my staff because while sitting on a team bench as an athletic trainer, he kept chirping at the officials and ended up with a technical foul. The funny thing was, at first Joe was sheepish about it, and then he wore that like a badge of honor. I told him, got technical and so on. But thanks to all three of you, you made that year particularly memorable. I am grateful to the members of the Final Four team. Many of them are here tonight, and all deservedly inducted into the Jefferson Hall of Fame as a team. Denise Rimby, Val Ridge, Terry Coleman-Spiotto, Kim DeCave-Stocks, Allison Lavery-Stover, and Vincey Morris joining us this evening. Vincent was inducted as an individual and as a team member. That year, to a person, they took to heart the mantra I kept preaching to them: do not accept mediocrity. They didn't, and they excelled to the highest level any basketball program could aspire to, going to the Final Four. Lastly, my gratitude extends to all the women I had the honor and privilege of coaching. You taught me many things, and we had fun. You left it on the field, or you left it on the court, as they say. You cared about each other, you were motivated to work hard, and committed to being your best. To a person, you cared about collective success more than individual achievement and accolades. I realize how fortunate I was and how deeply appreciative I am of having been your coach. Thank you all for this honor. You want to rip out the part where I...
No, that's all right. I remember that. As I remember it, I graciously allowed Julie to have any practice time that she wanted. And I'm taking that as credit for winning in the Final Four, getting to the Final Four. Congratulations, Julie. Nobody deserves it any more than you do. It's just terrific to see you when we get a chance. Julie and I shared an award that she got one year and I got the next, or the year after, called the Pat Summitt Award, which is given every year by the NCAA. It's their highest honor that they give. And when I received it last year, I looked through the list of honorees and I saw Julie, and it made me even more proud to receive that award. So again, congratulations on tonight. Our last inductee, when I found out that Bob was going into the Hall of Fame, and I was told that his presenter was going to be Harry Gatilius, I thought that's tremendous because I haven't seen Harry for so long. And the one thing I remember about Harry, he fancies himself a comedian, and actually is a pretty funny guy. We're having the Varsity Club banquet one night in the cafeteria, and his line was, when he got up, he said, "This is tremendous, bologna over candlelight." And that was the bill of fare at the time. It didn't go over real well with the administration or with the athletic director at the time, but to introduce our next inductee, Harry Gatilius, former baseball coach.
Thank you. Herb, you look a lot better than Tom Shirley told me. You really, you're doing all right. Bob Smith is going to be inducted tonight into the Jefferson Hall of Fame for baseball. And you know, it's kind of interesting because the fact that he even got to play baseball is kind of a minor miracle. When Bob was a boy, this is not a joke actually, for a boy, for 3.5 years, he had a very rare hip disease, and he had to wear braces on his legs. So until he was 14 years old, He had never played an organized game of baseball. And just 4 years later, in 1972, at Abington High School, I was told by a good friend of mine, said, you got to see this left-handed pitcher hitter here at Abington. He's really super. You ought to try to get him to come to Textile. So I went to see Bob play, and I knew he was right from the beginning. Bob came to Textile, and his freshman year, he made an immediate impact. He averaged, you may think I'm making this up, he averaged 2 runs batted in per game. He also averaged 1 home run per every 10 at-bats. To say he had a remarkable freshman year would be an understatement. He was also then our best pitcher and hitter for 2 more years after that. One special thing I remember his junior year, we were playing against a really good team, the best pitcher in the league, and in addition to that, it was a playoff game, and Bob hit the longest home run I ever saw in my 7 years of college coaching. We never could figure out how far it went, but honest to goodness, I swear it traveled almost 500 feet. The point is that Bob was an amazing college hitter, really tremendous, and a great pitcher as well. But the one thing I do want to mention about Bob Smith is that he was our star player for 3 years. And yet I can tell you for a fact that not one guy on that team ever resented him. Bob was liked by every player on the team. He never has any ego problems or anything else. Just a great, great guy. It was no surprise then, after the tremendous career he had for us, that after his junior year he got drafted by the New York Yankees. And in 1975, the Yankees sent Bob to the New York Penn League in the minor leagues. Bob started off slowly, but then he really came on, and as a matter of fact, he wound up in the top 10 in hitters in the New York Penn League. And he is a pitcher, he threw in the low 90s, for real. In fact, he had one game they had him start, he threw a complete game, 9-inning shutout. The guy was a tremendous young baseball talent. At the end of that season, in 1975, his minor league coach came up to him and said, Bob, I can't see any reason why you won't make the major leagues. And you might make it as both a hitter and a pitcher. Guess you would have beaten Shohei Ohtani to that, right? At any rate, everything looked great for Bob, and then at the beginning of his second year for the minor leagues, he suffered a very tragic injury. And the injury cost him the ability to play that season. And it also cost him his baseball career. The Yankees released him, and his baseball life was over. He could have made a comeback, but instead he came back to Textile, got his MBA, and launched his career. And may I just tell you this, that his post-baseball life has been nothing but a home run. He and his beautiful bride, Kathy, make sure I get this right, have been married for 42 years, and the nice thing is, of course, he met Kathy right here at Textile. Professionally, for 22 years, he worked for Legrand, a French-based electrical manufacturer, and he worked there until 2007 when he left as the executive vice president in charge of sales. He then became president and CEO of iMark Corporation, an $8 billion electrical distribution network, and he finished his career as the head of the board of directors of iMark, which launched an international marketing operation in 15 nations. He finally retired 2 years ago, and now he and his wife Kathy really enjoy traveling around the world, which they've done a great deal. He just came back from a very interesting trip. He was in the Indian Ocean snorkeling for quite a while. Bob, in his spare time, has run 9 marathons. He has also competed in many Ironman triathlons. Right now, he and Kathy enjoy most of the time being with their son, Colin, their daughter, Kyle, and their spouses, and in the middle of this coming baseball season, for the first time, he will become a grandfather. Isn't that cool? Bob was a great baseball player at Textile, but in all sincerity, even a greater man. It gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce to you a new member of the Jefferson University Hall of Fame, Mr. Bob Smith. Bob.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Herb, for doing this tonight. Inductees, congratulations to you. You know, tonight really is in no way, shape, or form about me. There's the people that happen to come here tonight are people I invited for a very specific reason. It was an opportunity to say thanks. See, so my father passed away just when I was 17, rather tragically, heart attack. And then within a couple of years, my mother was terminally ill, and she also passed away. And a lot of people, in fact, my wife, incidentally, who Herb had mentioned, I should say, a couple of years ago, I retired. Last October, I was very blessed that the company I had worked for invited me to a retirement, finally, post-COVID, for what it's worth, post-COVID. And I had great opportunity to thank the various chairs I worked under, as well as the shareholders, but more importantly, to thank my wife. And, we're going on 43 years, and she meant an awful lot, and I publicly really wanted to thank her. I met her, as the coach mentioned, here at this university. In fact, I think Karen mentioned Aldhouse Hall. I think it's still called that. I met her basically under Aldhouse Hall, which was at the time the cafeteria. As I like to tell our kids, I think it was parking spot A3 we met. But I said to Kathy as we got to this thing, I said, because Kathy never met my parents. They had passed before we ever met. And for some reason unknown to God and man, she married a guy named Bob Smith. She could not trace any background or anything, but she did. But I said I really wasn't. I think I gave her enough accolades in October to last me a few years, because it's really about people who knew me and knew maybe one or maybe two of my parents. And one is my sister. My sister is about 7.5 years older than me. She's in her mid-20s. And she's living in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And I am in college here at Textile. And my mother's terminally ill. She's supposed to live 3 months. She tragically lived 6, and I only say that because of what she went through. My sister, inexplicably, and her husband, who's also here, married in 1969, incidentally, they make the decision that they live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. That's 235 miles away. They make the decision that my sister and their little daughter are going to come live with me, because I lived at home at the time. And the reason they did that is, first of all, the memory of our father, the love of our mother, and to keep her little brother in school. And she did that. My brother-in-law would get in the car Friday nights, no cell phones, no computers, well, maybe computers, but the old, whatever those cards were. And he would drive after 5 o'clock, 235 miles to Philadelphia, and then on Sunday, 235 miles back, 6 months. So how do you can't possibly thank somebody for that. There's almost no way to thank. But that's what they did. They settled the estate, which really wasn't much of it. But that's one thanks. Coach Cotillius is another thanks. Coach Cotillius, I could still see him on the field when he recruited me with my mother right before she got terminally ill. And Coach Cotillius, all of a sudden he knows my mother passes, I'm having some trouble. Coach Cotillius, incidentally, you may not know this, he is arguably, possibly, the youngest NCAA head coach in the history of the NCAA. He was 23 years old when he became the head coach. He jokingly said to me, he says, it's not because I was good, it's because I was cheap. But it's true. Yeah. But Coach Cotillius also, his parents also died when he was young, and he knew what I was going through. He's not Catholic. He's actually a PhD, and he actually is a minister. But he hooked me up with a Father Tom Hagen from North Catholic, an oblate, who 5 years later, some years later, 1980, would marry my wife and I. Father Hagen's still alive. He's in his mid-80s, and he's ministering in Haiti. But how can you thank somebody? That's where coaches like Julie and coaches like Cotillius and Coach McGee mean so much to young people. Then there's people like Steve and Rick Yost. They're here today. Steve went away with the Mets when I went away with the Yankees. He played for Temple when Temple was a powerhouse. His brother Rick was a standout first baseman at the University of Penn. Steve reminded me, he called me, when I called him, say, would you come to this? I didn't tell him that I wanted to thank, actually not the two of them, but I'll talk about that. He said, hey, Smitty, you remember when I came in to pinch hit? He had a very serious back injury, and I came in to pinch hit. You threw me 2 beautiful curveballs, and I was 0-2, and then some unexplainable reason you threw me a fastball, and I lined it in the center. I said, yes, Steve, I do remember that. And then another guy, Jimmy Priest, you remember when you hit me in the back with a fastball? I said, so you really got to be careful who you actually invite to these things, because a couple more stories like that and they'll take that thing away. But it's not Steve or Rick I'm talking about, it's their mother, Mrs. Yost. Mrs. Yost worked as a barmaid, waitress, many years. She worked into her 80s, if I got that right. She worked all kinds of hours. And she's a single mother. And she's trying to take care of these two guys, to keep them on their straight and narrow. And somehow, at the time, like I say, I'm not sure where I'm going to put my head in the summer. And she's somehow agrees that it might be a good idea that I can stay at their house. So here's a single mother working all kinds of hours, and they invite me, and many a night's a hamburger helper. So it's actually Mrs. Yost, God rest her soul, who I want to thank. Yogi Berra once said you learn a lot by observing, and I observed this woman, and I know they think of her a lot, but she was like a mother to me, and I revere her, and I think about her. There's guys like Jimmy Edwards, Hall of Fame. Jimmy used to be my wake-up guy. I say, Jimmy, knock on my door. Well, yeah, my kids won't believe this, but I used to really like to sleep, because I still get, Jimmy, wake up, and sometimes he'd knock on the door, and I'd have to, sometimes I slept in my clothes, because he's bigger than me, basketball, so I didn't want to. And he would always go to the cafeteria the first thing in the morning. So I had to go to the first thing in the cafeteria. And I was, unlike you, Malcolm, I wasn't a real student athlete. So then after breakfast, and it's like, what do you do the rest of the day? Well, maybe I'll go see what these classes are all about. So I got better at graduate school. But Jimmy also, he would take me home weekends. His mother had always made this beautiful fruit salad. His father would come to our games. I'd go to Mass. That's a great thing. Bobby Kirk led the team in hits with me the year I got drafted. His parents actually ran an orphanage up in Beth Anna Home. Bob would take me home, and I'd observe what would go on there. Then there's Bill Gallagher. Bill Gallagher, his father owned a beer distributorship back in the day. The famous Richie Allen, Dick Allen, used to buy his beer there, and some of the Phillies. But Bill Gallagher is probably the most genuine, most sincere, and most honorable person I've ever met in my life. And as Yogi Berra said, you learn a lot by observing, and that was a person that I really knew. And then there's Bob and Sue Nidek, Dr. Nidek, if I may say. Bob and Sue met at this university. I was in his wedding, he was in my wedding. And they've been very generous to here and very generous to Villanova as well. Bob helped me, tutored me through a lot of school. Bob is actually going to be inducted into the Fast Pitch Hall of Fame this coming fall. And if you've ever seen fast pitch softball, he's won 4 world titles, I think 3 national titles, and 1 Canadian title, somewhere around there. So he is really something else. But Bob was in my wedding, kind of a little side story here, because I want to say something about the university. But Bob, he's in the left-hand corner of our wedding picture. So obviously Kathy and I are in the center, and there's a little girl in the front. She's 5 years old, and she's my sister and brother-in-law's daughter. So she's 5 years old. Well, she grows up, and she ends up going to Villanova. She's an academic All-American. She tells me that Dr. Nidek is literally the best teacher she's ever had in her life. So that's saying something. So she also, I can't even begin to tell you her things. Well, at any rate, she starts a new job on Monday. She was just announced a little bit ago as the CFO of the NFL, reporting to Roger Goodell. So pretty impressive there. So, but Bob and I are taking some credit for it, because I helped her learn how to ski, run her first marathon. Bob taught her. So it wasn't all parents. So the last thing I'd like to say is obviously about this university. When I was here, of course, he knows him a lot better, and I think Julie does perhaps than I do, but Bucky Harris is one of the main reasons I want to say what I'm going to say. This university meant a lot to me, as it did to a lot of us. Bucky Harris was a man's man. Bucky Harris was a veteran of the Pacific Theater of Operations. He was in Iwo Jima. I believe he was wounded there. I was sorry to see his oldest son, Buddy, recently passed away. He actually pitched in the major leagues for the Houston Astros. But when I got injured, Bucky said to me, he said, Bobby, you gotta finish your degree. Back then, you couldn't get drafted as a junior. You had to go hardship. And so which I did, so I still had to finish school. He said, I'm going to get you probably couldn't get away with this today. I'm going to get you a meal ticket. I'm going to find a place for you to live that nobody will know you're there. You finish your degree, and I'll get you a job. So I used to wash the men's basketball team, the men's soccer team uniforms. I did odd jobs with my Bobby Kirk, and he actually had us as security guards. That's almost comical if you think about it. I mean, you can't wrap your head around that, but we were security guards. So I think Bob spent time in his girlfriend's room, but that's what this university meant to me. And these people, it's not about me, it's about me thanking these people who are here. But I'll leave you with one exchange. I heard this exchange in I believe it was 2003, November of 2003. It was an exchange between 2 women, 2 very powerful and strong women. And I heard this exchange, and I think if they were here today, I used this exchange in 2014. Dr. Steve Spinelli asked me to welcome in the class of 2014, and I used this exchange. When I first heard this exchange, and I mean this with all sincerity, I thought about these people. I thought about my sister, the Yost, Gallagher, and Jimmy Edwards and these people. I thought about them. And I remembered this line, and I remember this exchange right now. And what the exchange was is these two women, if they were here today, and you know, some people like pronouns, some don't, they might challenge me, and they might want to be called a pronoun. And I would know what that pronoun would be. It'd be witch. They would want to be called a witch. And I say that because, and you'll understand in a second too, they understood that their time, that they may not ever see each other again. And they had such a turmoil in their college career. And the one witch, well, her name was Glinda with a G, or the good. And the other witch, her name was Alphaba, or wicked. And Glinda turns to Alphaba, and she says, and this is where I think of you in this university, and I'm not going to sing it because I'll spare you, because they're obviously the stars of the Broadway musical Wicked. And Glinda says to Alphaba, she said, I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, and they bring something we must learn if we let them. And we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I am who I am today because I knew you. Thank you. God bless you.
And I've been doing this a long time as the MC, and I think this might be the most diversified class that we've ever had. And certainly it's been an honor for me to be here and a pleasure to see all you folks that have been inducted. If you look at the list with rowing, men's basketball, women's basketball, Julie, administrator, and Bob Smith, coming from 1975, obviously has been an extremely successful man. It's really has been a great, great night for me. Now, at this time, what we'd like to do is have all of the presenters come up with all of the inductees, and there is a pen that we want you to take. A lapel pen. You know, we spared no expense with these lapel pens. So, just to let you know where the budget goes, these lapel pins are very expensive. So we want you to wear it proudly. And also, you've received, if you haven't already received your award, pick that up now.
How about we get one picture?
This would be the time to get some photos if you want, folks. Hold it. What, are you kidding me? What, are you kidding me? Oh, I didn't get to do it. No, I'll tell That finishes the evening's festivities. Thank you all for coming.